Hello everyone, I'm Jack Fisher and welcome to my world. And this video will be an epilogue of sorts of my elaborate pitch for rebooting Ultimate Marvel. Now, I freely admit that this pitch turned into something much more elaborate than I expected. I honestly thought I could fit every point I wanted to make in a single video. In hindsight, I really underestimated just how big this concept would get. I also underestimated how much fun I would have, exploring ideas for our rebooted Ultimate Universe. But I choose to see that as more of an unexpected bonus. Because I really have enjoyed this process, and I hope others have enjoyed following along as that process played out. Now, if you haven't done so already, I encourage everyone to watch the previous 6 videos in this series. They lay out why I believe the time is right for an Ultimate reboot, as well as potential visions for how certain titles could play out. I tried to keep it general. I also tried to present it as something Marvel could actually pursue. Now, I never claimed that this vision is good or even viable. I am not a writer at Marvel, nor am I qualified to flesh something out this big in terms of scope or scale. The reason I took this approach was simple. If an ordinary guy with a YouTube channel can make this concept seem appealing, then the skilled minds at Marvel can surely do something many times better. And I hope I've succeeded in making this idea for a rebooted Ultimate Universe seem like something that's worth attempting. But just setting up a new Ultimate Universe cannot be the primary goal. One of the many reasons the original Ultimate comics failed was because they lost sight of a larger vision or plan. Eventually, the Ultimate comics just became a dumping ground of sorts for bad or incomplete ideas, a place where things could be different just for the sake of being different. A rebooted Ultimate Marvel needs to be treated like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And by that, I mean it needs to have a long-term plan to go along with a unique brand. This world needs to be distinct from the first iteration of Ultimate, but it also needs these iconic characters to feel real, legitimate, and likable. And that means not just telling stories that can't be told in the mainline comics. In general, it should keep things basic, telling stories that resonate with new and established audiences alike. That's why, for this final video, I want to lay out a few more details for a potentially rebooted Ultimate Marvel. Think of them as supplements to the visions I established in the previous videos. On top of that, I also want to present other ways of expanding Ultimate beyond those titles. Because I think one critical aspect for this new Ultimate Marvel should be to keep the number of ongoing titles small. That's one element from the previous Ultimate Universe that should definitely remain. Make it so that readers can consume an entire Marvel Universe in just 4 or 5 comics a month. The 4 ongoing should consist of Marvel's biggest franchises, namely Avengers, X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man. Keep those titles running alongside one another. They can still cross over from time to time, but they need to run in parallel. The former Ultimate titles managed to do that for a brief while, but that quickly fell apart with the Ultimates due to numerous delays with Mark Millar and Brian Hitch. Now, I know delays can't always be avoided, especially with the comics industry. But the powers that be at Marvel should make it clear from the outset. These 4 books need to come out together. They're not just a series of unconnected titles. They're part of a larger brand and a larger vision. There would still be room for a 5th title, but I think that should function more as a space for miniseries. Maybe once this new Ultimate Universe begins, there could be a number of miniseries that explore the cosmic side of things. It could start with the Silver Surfer or Guardians of the Galaxy, building on the aftermath of the Kree-Skrull War that helped set everything into motion. It could also build upon events that unfold within the ongoing books. Maybe after Daredevil or the Punisher show up in Ultimate Spider-Man, they could get a mini-series to establish who they are in this universe. That 5th book could also be a means of highlighting a particular character or story element. Perhaps there could be a Wolverine mini-series to explore how Weapon X unfolded within this world. There might be another series that explores how Captain America conducted himself in World War II, or how Tony Stark became Iron Man. These are all things that previous Ultimate books attempted to do, but it was messy and incoherent at times. And some even ended up being purged from the canon outright, to see Orson Scott Card's Ultimate Iron Man series. And maybe some of these minis become so successful that they become their own ongoings. That should be an option. You just never know when a series idea or character will take off. But as a general rule, the number of Ultimate titles coming out every month should not exceed the number of fingers on your hand. Too many books will just create too many moving parts, both for the writers and for the audience. The goal should be to keep things coherent and streamlined. Another critical element that this new Ultimate universe should emphasize is aesthetics. Ultimate is a brand. The characters you see may have the same name and general history as the ones you've known from the mainline comics, but they should have their own distinct look within Ultimate. Ultimate Iron Man, Ultimate Wolverine, and Ultimate Reed Richards each had distinct styles. Even a casual reader could tell that these were not the same characters from the mainline comics. The Ultimate style in terms of uniforms and character designs should help them stand out from other versions. That way, when someone picks up an Ultimate book, they know they're getting a particular experience. Now, in terms of things a rebooted Ultimate universe should do differently, well, that's a much longer list. I could talk for hours about what should and shouldn't be on that list, but I'll try to highlight just a few key points. One area I feel this new Ultimate universe should improve upon is romantic subplots. Because, by and large, the previous Ultimate universe did a lackluster job in that department, even at its best. In fact, outside the romance between Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson, the former Ultimate comics did a terrible job establishing quality romance. Many of its romantic plots were either creepy as hell, a la the incest plot between the Maximoff twins, or just very out of character, a la every sleazy act involving Wolverine. Now, I know a new Ultimate universe is a chance to do things radically different. But overall, I think Ultimate should retain Marvel's most iconic relationships. That includes, but isn't limited to, Spider-Man and Mary Jane Watson, Reed Richards and Susan Storm, Cyclops and Jean Grey, or Bruce Banner and Betty Ross. Now, how these romances ultimately blossom can and should be different. Maybe characters like Cyclops and Jean Grey date other people before getting together. Maybe Spider-Man and Mary Jane's romance is very one-sided at first, but that changes over time. And yes, even iconic romances like Reed and Sue can face some upheavals, as they often do in the mainline comics. But the endgame shouldn't change. Ultimately, these iconic lovers should still end up together, and how their relationship evolves and blossoms should be emphasized. On top of that, this new Ultimate universe could set up romances that we haven't seen in the mainline comics, and romances that don't involve incest. Maybe Carol Danvers could explore something with Tony Stark, bonding over their shared struggle with alcoholism. Maybe Captain America could develop a relationship with Black Widow, which could make for some interesting dynamics, an American icon falling for a Russian spy. And maybe Wolverine could get together with a version of Psylocke, one that could combine his fondness for telepaths with his fondness for Asian women. There are plenty of opportunities for romance in the new Ultimate universe. And that soap opera element does appeal to plenty of fans, and not just romance lovers like myself. Putting more effort into these stories can only help that appeal. But as for the characters themselves, I also think that certain Ultimate characters need to stand out, and I'm not just talking about aesthetics. The previous Ultimate comics attempted to do that, but the results were mixed at best. Just see Doctor Doom's goat legs for a hilariously bad example. Again, I think a rebooted Ultimate Marvel should take the same approach as the Marvel Cinematic Universe, giving certain characters a familiar persona but a unique history. For characters like Thanos and Zemo, it has worked beautifully. For Malekith the Accursed, not so much. But a new Ultimate universe can learn from both. Perhaps a new Ultimate version of Thanos is still the Mad Titan, but he's not mad because he's in love with death or wants to kill half of all life. He might be mad for an entirely different reason. Now, I don't know what that reason could be, but he could still be this big, cosmic menace that warrants an entire crossover story. And other characters like MODOK, Molecule Man, Wonder Man, Moon Girl, or Fing Fang Foom might warrant a more radical reimagining. Their histories and personas in the mainline comics are steeped in absurdities from previous eras, and an Ultimate version of these characters could offer a more nuanced take. But even with better characterizations and romantic subplots, there's one detail a rebooted Ultimate Marvel must have, which will likely determine whether this effort will succeed or fail. And that's a coherent plan. I know I've said it before, but it's worth belaboring. A solid plan is what helped the first iteration of Ultimate Comics succeed. The utter absence of a coherent plan is what doomed it later on. Ultimate Spider-Man always seemed to have a plan for its characters and stories. Every other title, not so much. If there was a plan, it just kept changing constantly, and nobody could settle on anything cohesive. A quality, creative vision for Ultimate Marvel will be what helps this new series succeed. Again, the MCU has established a gold standard. There was a general idea of where the story would go, how it would get there, and what sort of events needed to happen along the way. It manifested in phases, one building upon the events of the other, eventually culminating in this big, grand spectacle. That visionary approach helped make the MCU one of the most successful movie franchises of all time. And that same approach could work wonders for Ultimate Marvel. Now, perhaps the first phase is just about assembling the heroes, having them each follow their own unique path to becoming the heroes we know and love. Then, a much larger threat comes along, perhaps a dual invasion by the Kree and the Skrulls, one that requires every hero and every team to work together. Then, in the second phase, their ranks grow. Things are good for a while. The Avengers get along with the X-Men, Spider-Man is treated well by the police, the Fantastic Four are celebrated superhero celebrities. But then, cracks start to form. New villains like General Ross, Baron Zemo, or Loki start sowing the seeds of discontent. And ultimately, they start to turn on one another, resulting in a superhero civil war or an Avengers vs. X-Men scenario. Finally, in a third phase, they all have to come together again to take on a bigger threat like Thanos, Doctor Doom, or Kang the Conqueror. Doing so means they have to swallow their pride, work through old issues, and unite again to save the day. And along the way, new ideas and concepts could be explored, from the world of the mystic arts, to cosmic entities like the Phoenix Force and the Dark Dimension, to villainous organizations like AIM, Hydra, or the Ten Rings, to the unique geopolitics of this world, especially once heroes become more prominent. It would definitely be an elaborate plan, one that requires constant world building and refinement. Now, there would surely be some mistakes along the way, but there would be some flexibility to fix them. It all just needs to be part of a larger plan, one that writers and editors can stick to for the long haul. The possibilities and potential within this plan could be vast. Like its predecessor and the MCU, it could elevate Marvel in profound ways. On top of that, it could reinvigorate the comic book market, which is something it badly needs right now. It could even foster some additional innovations along the way. Maybe these comics could be offered as supplements to Disney Plus subscribers. Maybe they could serve as the basis for a new line of motion comics, something that was trendy for a while, but faded after the rise of the MCU. The first iteration of Ultimate Marvel was such a unique, innovative narrative. It helped raise the bar for what modern comics could be. A rebooted Ultimate Marvel could offer a new foundation to build on, a new sandbox to play in for these iconic characters. What could come of that is hard to fathom, but intriguing to contemplate. I've only presented the ideas that I could come up with personally, and I don't doubt for a second that others far smarter and more capable than me can come up with something even better. The previous versions of Ultimate Marvel has a mixed legacy, but Ultimate Marvel, as both a concept and a brand, that is still a bold idea with a big upside. And while I doubt anyone from Marvel will ever see this video series, I hope I've convinced those who've watched it of the potential. Even if it doesn't happen, my ultimate hope is that it inspires other marvelous ideas. Pun totally intended. But what do you think? Have I convinced you? Do you have other ideas for a rebooted Ultimate Marvel that are better than mine? If so, please share them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for joining me in my world. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, take care and stay safe.